midst of all the continuing coronavirus challenges, you could be forgiven for forgetting about the impending Brexit and its multiple range of impacts. Out of those impacts, there's one urgent element that you need to both be aware of and possibly take action. And in many cases, it's a no time to wait action. It involves the change in the immigration system, which you're likely to know about, but maybe not really know about. After all, the recent government advice paper was 132 pages long. But it's an area in which you need to show leadership, which is why I was delighted for the Meet the Leader show and our Business Beyond Brexit shows to be able to interview the recognised leaders in immigration change support, Migrate UK, and their brilliant manager, Karendeep Kaur. Hello, Karen. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Excellent. It's lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. Now, we've started really early this morning because there's a lot to get through. Before we get into the immigration system changes and impact, though, give us a brief overview of Migrate UK and how you help clients.
Okay, so we are a specialist immigration firm and we deal with all things immigration. As you can appreciate, we do deal with a whole host of different case types. But we find that the most common ones that we do tend to deal with are those life cycle ones. So you've got your family life applications, you've got indefinite leave to remain, British nationality, and of course then for those businesses, there's those sponsor license applications. And we do also deal with those complex cases which do come forward on occasion. So you've got domestic violence, your medical treatment, and obviously those applications that require that leave outside the rules.
Excellent. Now, as I said in my opening piece, just that one recent document was 132 pages long. I started reading, I gave up after the first 3 or 4. But what's your 3 or 4 point key call to action summary from the document for leaders who are viewing and listening to this? What should they be asking within their business?
Okay, so I think the first point I would suggest is to start identifying their European workers. You know, these European need to be protected, their rights are protected in the UK, and they need to be given the opportunity to settle in the UK if that's what they want to do. Secondly, I would suggest, you know, forecast your workforce from January 2021, remembering that now the skill level is dropping from RQF level 6 to RQF level 3+. Don't forget that, because it's going to be a real benefit. Lastly, it's obtain that sponsor license. Okay, it's going to be a real asset to your business from January 2021.
Okay, let's dive a little deeper into a couple of aspects which Home Secretary Priti Patel has been talking about. First, the so-called resident labour market test is to be scrapped. What was it, and what will it be replaced by? Will it help sectors like hospitality and care homes?
Okay, so the resident labour market test was required for those jobs that were not on the shortage occupation list. And those jobs needed to be advertised by 2 different media, one of which was mandatory. So you can imagine it was a very onerous exercise, and it was adding at least a month to the onboarding process when you were trying to bring in an overseas national, you see. And that 132-page document actually doesn't mention any replacement for the resident labour market test, which is obviously a good thing. And also they've gone on as far as to say that they're going to scrap that quota, the monthly quota, which you had to apply for by the 5th of every month. In terms of helping hospitality and care homes, unfortunately, that's not going to really be the case, okay? Because it's only those, it's all about the salary and the skill level. So for hospitality, you're looking at the managerial role. So you've got your bartenders, the bar managers, and your caterers. And for the care homes, it's your senior care workers that meet the RQF level 3+ roles. And all of these individuals need to be paid at the minimum 25,600, and that must be the guaranteed salary. So it can't be, you know, your tips or your accommodation. It's guaranteed. And also, the only way to really avoid that 25,600 is if you're hiring somebody at the age of 26 or less. But again, all you're going to be doing is delaying the inevitable there, because at 3-year stage, that salary needs to be increased to the going rate at the time. And so basically, yeah, at that 3-year stage, you need to be showing that that going rate is being paid and whatever that going rate is at the time. So what we're hoping for is that sector-based visa route for the hospitality industry. And for anybody that's really interested, that 132-page document does actually outline all those professions that are going to be covered under RQF level 3 to 6. So if obviously if anybody's really interested in delving into that and looking into that, then that 132-page document does have that.
So tell me, what's the new health and care visa, and how would it work, and for whom?
Again, that health and care visa, the list of the professions that are included are within that 132-page document. However, what we've decided to do at Migrate UK is we've provided an easier read version on our website. So if anybody's, again, interested to have a read through, it will tell them exactly what they need to do moving forward. Then, yeah, definitely, they'll be able to check it at migrateuk.com. But in a nutshell, what it's going to do is provide you with those reduced application fees. It's going to allow for that fast-track entry and provide that dedicated support to those individuals that have a guaranteed job offer under one of those defined health.
Thank you. And by the way, I put the URL behind me to go and see that documentation that Karen's just been talking about. I believe provision is being made for international students to be able to, some come to the UK and study and then remain. I'm sure that will help many universities again, but how will it work?
Definitely, it's going to be welcome news for those international students, because there's always that, that worry as soon as studies are finished. What do we do now? Find sponsorship. So remember, this is not from January 2021. This will apply from summer 2021. So those students who come into the UK to do their bachelor's or master's will be provided with an extra 2 years on the end of their visa. Those coming into the UK to do a PhD will be provided with an extra 3 years on the end of their visa. And the thing to remember is that there will be no sponsorship required for those 2 or 3 years. So it's giving those students the opportunity to get a feel for the resident labour market. And the only thing is that that route, it won't lead to settlement. Again, it gets their foot in the door to start working with some of those organisations where sponsorship can work, and then potentially move on to getting onto a route which allows settlement in the UK. Point. But one thing I would say is that the government is going to want to utilise these students for those routes where sponsorship really doesn't work. So for those sectors, so you've got your hospitality, you've got care, you've got retail, and of course agriculture, where sponsorship isn't really at the forefront. So these students will be expected to help out in these industries.
So with 132 pages, surely everything is cut, dried and very clear now. Or are there any grey areas that businesses need to know about?
Oh, definitely. So yeah, we would hope that it was, all to be all ready to go. But the only problem is that the government's only mentioned the points-based system, as opposed to the entire UK immigration as it was really advertised to be. So of course, a lot of immigration lawyers are getting confused and thinking, well, are we going to see the rest of it at some point? So for example, they have included visitors. And you've got to remember that visitors have never been a paid points-based system route, because points-based system is all about economic migration. And again, they failed to mention one of the old PBS routes, which is the investor visa. And also, although these are not points-based system routes, the UK ancestry and you've got sole representative, there's been no mention of these routes either, and it would have been actually quite nice to have an indication as to whether any changes can be expected in these routes from January 2021.
During the past 3 months, I've interviewed over 70 CEOs and MDs for the Meet the Leader show. Almost all their conversation has been about COVID-19, its continuing impact, the need for workplace change, cash, customers, supply chain, and so on. Brexit has hardly figures, as it's supposedly months away. Today, or this week, is what matters to them. I have a feeling that that could lead to trouble. What do you want to say to them?
Oh, To be honest, Malcolm, this has been our most important message in all of our press releases since Brexit has been announced. So the government has reiterated in February and again now, basically their recommendation is that any organisation that is looking to employ a non-settled person in the UK, they will need to apply for a sponsor licence starting from autumn this year. Of course, it's August now, we're in autumn. So it might be that smaller businesses think that they don't have the need at the moment and that, you know, we don't really need a sponsor license. But what they're going to do is lose out when employment starts to boom again, because competition is going to get fierce. I think the government has been quite clear to say that free movement is going to end in January 2021. And that they're going to go ahead with Brexit, and they're not really going to be given an extension to this. They're willing to push ahead. And although immigration is an expensive business, there's no doubt about that, but obtaining a sponsor license isn't actually that bad. It's going to last you for 4 years, sponsor license, before it's up for renewal, and then it's practically a pay-as-you-go system. So every single time you want to employ somebody from overseas, you pay as you go for that individual. The last thing I'd like to say actually on this point is there's a common myth that a company needs to be X number of years old. That's not true. A company could have opened last week, started trading last month. As long as they can show that they are established in the UK and have the documents to show this, they can apply for a sponsor license.
Excellent. Good information. I have a great love and extensive experience in the hospitality sector. It's been hard hit by coronavirus, struggling to survive, never mind recover. A huge portion of those employed in the sector are from overseas, and I have a feeling many may be tempted, perhaps through desperation or cash worries, to take an easy way out, which may be illegal. What's the minimum they should do to stay legal, and is it affordable?
Okay, so any sponsored worker, their immigration status must show work permitted. And you'll find that information either on their biometric residence permit or one of their approval letters, but work must be permitted. Okay, moving forward, business needs to be regularising the stay for those EU workers. So apply via the EU settlement scheme. The company should be recommending it to their employees, those EU workers, recommending it, promoting it, and supporting them with it, but they cannot be seen to be demanding it. That's the difference. And it is affordable, it's free. The EU settlement scheme is free to apply to. So as a business, you need to remember that you cannot afford to be conducting illegal practices, because you're looking, if banned, you're looking at least a £20,000 fine minimum, or possibly go into prison.
Wow, that's a good warning. Thanks, Karen. Again, in my experience working across sectors, I see many companies approaching their provision for Brexit immigration changes on a piecemeal basis, perhaps person by person or an occasional department. Surely it would be more sensible to have a company-wide plan. How could that work, and how can Migrate UK help?
So yes, definitely it's worth having a company-wide plan. And this is, I think, where we add the most value. So what we do is we specialise in providing that strategy for any type of business. All it requires is the HR or finance director to get in touch with us. And then we will provide, during that free initial chat, put together a plan, basically, which best suits their organisation. Okay, and then we'll set up the compliance processes, we conduct audits, and basically acting as an extension to their HR function. So they've got those timely updates coming through, they've got the strategy changes provided well before those strategy changes are needed and before that need arises. And what we feel is that many of our clients prefer to have us on a small retainer, so that, you know, it's a small yearly retainer, and they know and they have that peace of mind that we are available for that support all year round.
Now, Karen, it's time to put your scarf over your head, get your crystal ball out, and answer this question. Brexit still has lots of uncertainties, including deal or no deal, or even an extension? Just talk us through those scenarios and the implication to the planned immigration system.
Okay, so I think the government has actually made up their mind. Yeah, there's not going to be an extension. Free movement's going to end. So no one should be really looking at these as individual scenarios, but the UK standing alone from January 2021. So if you look at a deal situation, the UK will be standing alone. There's a no deal situation, there's going to be bilateral agreements with those individual member states, which is going to give them a slight edge in the market under UK immigration. And under an extension scenario, all we're doing is delaying the inevitable. Okay? But the one thing I would say is the extension is going to give businesses more time to recover from COVID.
Yeah. Yesterday it was no deal, and today I read the newspapers and they're talking about a deal. So thank you very much for the crystal ball look there. Look, construction is an important sector in the UK with around 1 in 4 businesses in the sector. It's also a sector that's relied heavily on overseas workers and a sector that's to the forefront of the UK recovery with massive infrastructure projects. Tier 1 or the big contractors get the contracts and then subcontract or have massive supply chains. Do you think it's the responsibility of those Tier 1 contractors to ensure that all their sub-providers are employing people legally, say such as they would have to do with regard to the Modern Day Slavery Act? If so, what would you say to those main contractors about how to go about it? How can Migrate UK help?
So this is definitely a really, really good question, Malcolm. And just so you know that the 132-page document hasn't placed any particular emphasis on any contractual situations. So if we base it on the current rules, which we don't expect to change, then the main question is, who is the employer? Okay, who has control over the employee's HR function? So you're looking at the absences, the holidays, hiring and firing of staff. And it's that employer that needs to hold the license. Okay, so if the employer is farming out their workforce to another organisation, they must be doing under a strict service agreement or a statement of works, which has a set duration for the provision of services that they're going to be providing. So there needs to be a start date and there needs to be an end date, and basically not to be seen as a provision of labour, which is body shopping. And that used to be a major issue for IT companies in the UK. The way we can help any construction firm, just give us a call, and what we do is speak to them and understand what kind of work structure they have. How does their business work with other businesses? And obviously after that chat, we're going to put together a plan, make sure they're going to remain compliant with all their work practices, and basically highlight in advance which overseas workers are going to be able to come to the UK from January 2021, therefore acting as an extension to their recruitment function. So they're aware who they should be going for from January 2021. What they need to remember is that compliance is key. Okay, so one error could lead to the revocation of their sponsor license, and which that ultimately means they're going to lose their entire sponsored workforce. And I don't think many of these individuals can obviously afford to do that, especially if they've got contracts with other organisations going on.
Not especially in the supply chain. Karen, that's extremely sensible advice, and I hope that everybody will pop along to your URL and I'll give you a call for help. Karen, enough of the heavy questions. It's 3 wishes time. What are your 3 wishes for the actions to be undertaken by businesses to trade successfully in compliance with the new immigration system?
Well, dare I say it, Malcolm? Shall we put the Christmas tree up and call it a year?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, no, so on a serious note, I think first of all, start the process for a sponsor license. It's going to be a huge benefit for the organisation. Again, it's not going to be an immediate need maybe for your organisation, but it lasts for 4 years. So when you do find that one employee that you must have, their talent must be within your organisation, it's going to be the difference of 2 weeks as opposed to a couple of months when we're looking at the onboarding process. Because instead of waiting around for a sponsor license, you'll already have that and that employee can come and join you as soon as possible. Another thing is that it's going to keep you ahead of the competition. It's a candidate-led market, and these candidates are really doing their homework. So they're checking on the tier 2 and 5 register of sponsors to see which organisations hold a sponsor licence, and they are boycotting the rest and applying solely for these organisations because they know it's going to be a quick win and they're going to get into these organisations. They haven't got time to be waiting around. Secondly, it's so important for a business to understand from January 2021 who they can recruit, which overseas workers they can recruit. It's going to save them time, money, the hassle, and potentially going to prison if they do something really. So what I would suggest is don't be afraid to talk to us. Yep, it's most likely that, you know, the list is going to change on a quarterly basis. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of information to digest. Not always going to be under HR's remit to do that. So if you just pick up the phone and have that 5-minute conversation, you know, it's going to be better to know in that 5 minutes as opposed to going through the whole entire process, months or weeks on end, and then realizing, oh, well, we can't hire this overseas national. So, for example, you might have the question, can I hire a plumber from Istanbul on January 2021? Simple answer is yes, you can, as long as they are being paid that 25,600. But just to add a disclaimer at the end of that, obviously this is the rules as they stand now, so this might change in a couple of months, so it's one to watch out for. And lastly, the most important one as well, I think, is let us know and let the government if you are struggling to fill that vacancy, because what you'll be doing is basically paving the way for that vacancy to be placed on the shortage occupation list, which in essence means that you'll be bringing in these workers on a lower salary, which is obviously a benefit for everybody. But last thing I would like to say is just remember, from January 2021, there's going to be a formula when it comes to hiring overseas nationals. That's going to be paid based on the migrant's age, the going rate for the job, and whether it's on the shortage skill, or whether it's an entry-level role.
Karen, if I could have the telephone number of that plumber in Istanbul, please. He'd probably get here faster than the one we've been waiting for. Karendeep Kaur, manager of Migrate UK. That was brilliant advice. Thank you very much indeed for the interview.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.